Hello everybody, this is Connor at BoatsDon'tSink here with another Vice Schwartz deck profile. We're going to be looking once again at Chainsaw Man, this time at the 8 standby deck. Before we jump into the deck list, just a reminder, as always, this is not optimized for any specific meta. Please play the deck, test it out, make any changes that you find necessary to your own playstyle or your local meta when you're playing this deck. So, looking at it, as a deck, it's gonna look pretty much like a normal standby deck for the most part. There's not really a whole lot of special stuff going on here. We got 1/1s, we got 2/2s, we got some early plays, we got 3/2 assists. We got all the standard tools here. We got our level 0 discard outlets. So pretty typical, which means, you know, if you like Chainsaw Man and you've played some other 8 standby decks, this might be right up your alley. Also has some funny flavor in some of the cards, so we'll check that out when we get there. That's honestly probably why you're watching the video to begin with. You like the thumbnail art. And if you want to check out the deck log page itself, you can go to JEGR, the code in the bottom right. It'll also be in the description. So our level curve is pretty normal. 17 zeros is lower than most decks, but maybe actually a little high for a standby deck. Probably around average, maybe a little high. I know we've seen decks like Data Live go as low as like 14 zeros, but we do still want to have some here and there. 7 ones, pretty much just our beaters and our backups. 8 twos, counters. We do have some events that are sort of padding our level 2 count. And then 10 level 3s, because basically all of them come out at level 2. The only one that doesn't is our 3/2 assist, but we're standbying that out anyway. So we're basically playing our entire strategy by the time we reach level 2, and have no real need for level 3 other than extra damage padding. We have 40 characters, 2 events, 8 climaxes, 24 soul triggers. 8 of those come from our climaxes, but that's still 16 otherwise, which is, funnily enough, more than we had in the choice deck. And that's just because of our high level 2 and 3 count. The colors are overwhelmingly red, with 10 yellow as really the only other color that we need to be able to play from hand. We have enough ways to color fix that it's fine. We do only have 4 blue, while one of our level 3s is in fact blue. But since we can standby it out, and one of our climax combos has an effect to play that straight down, you probably don't ever actually have to worry about leveling blue. Very rarely should you have to hard play that from hand. Taking a look at our specific cards, first up we have Chainsaw Devil Pochita. This was also in the last list we looked at, and it's pretty much here for similar reason, though a little stronger perhaps. It's 0015 Global 500 to all your Devil Hunter or Devil characters. That power pump, while usually not super relevant, in a standby deck where we do care about winning board, could actually be pretty decent in the early game. It also has pay to rest it, search your deck for a Devil Hunter or Devil. You're probably not going to be jamming that a whole lot. Maybe for some of our combos here where you need specific cards in hand, you could use it to set them up. 2 stocks a lot, especially for this deck. So again, probably not going to be using that. It's mainly here for the fact that it is part of the pseudo fusion package, where we can bring out the 3/2 Chainsaw Man early. And in a standby deck, we can do it even earlier. So kind of just here for that. 1 copy of Leader of Special Division for Makima. This is the climax swap from deck. It is the only climax swap I'm playing in this list. Most of the other decks that I've shown have had 2 climax swaps. Usually 1 from deck, 1 from waiting room. If you'd like a waiting room one, it shouldn't be too hard to find like a slot to fit it in this list. But I do prioritize the deck one here just because it's yellow. I do want that little bit of yellow color fix, since yellow does have cards that we want to be playing from our hand for some of their on-play effects. The effect, as it was in the last 2 decks, on play from hand, you can pay 1, search your deck for a climax, swap it with a climax in your hand, shuffle, and then climax phase you can give a character 1k. That is still pretty decent in this deck, despite the fact that we have high power lines already and do care about defensive power. Extra 1k on offense is always great, to sort of keep our guys safe from counters so we don't have to encore them as much. Instead of the Makima Riki, we're actually playing the power from the trial deck in this list, the 0/0 Devil Hunter power. First effect is a level 0 stock bomb, so this is going to be pretty good against any decks with on-death effects. Hololive especially is one that comes to mind. Any decks that have like Fukajiro effects or Chiiri effects. The second effect is what we're really here to play it as. This is when put into waiting room from stage, you can pay 1 and clock a character from waiting room to the bottom of your clock to choose a character in your waiting room and return it to your hand. So instead of searching on play like the Makima, this one's on death we salvage. Salvaging is probably still not as great as searching here, but since we have our Brainstorm has the cost to sack characters, we're probably going to have plenty of things in waiting room to salvage whenever this comes up. But also being on death means that we can play this turn 1 as a plussing 0 effectively, whereas the Makima you need a stock before you play it. This one you can just run out, it'll generate its own stock by attacking. And since we're playing a standby deck, sometimes you're going to have this on board and trigger a standby and be able to standby over it, and that can also trigger its effect immediately. There's also just the ability to color fix off of it, as always. Similar to the Makima, right? You could choose any character that you need the color for. And since it dies, since it's on death that its effect triggers, you can always clock itself. So it kind of like instantly color fixes the yellow for itself and fixes that for us. Our Brainstorm, one of our Brainstorms, this is the less important one. Devil Hunter Himeno, same as all the decks we've played it in. Act, pay 1, send this stand card to memory to search for a level 2 or higher character if you're level 2 or higher. In this deck, we do actually have some level 2 or higher that we need in our hand at specific points in the game, so this can help set those up. In addition to just being able to grab like Memory Kick Counter or the Fumio for various utility situations. Can also be used to grab the 2/1 Denji that lets us bring out the 3/2 Chainsaw Man early with the Pseudo Fusion if you're trying to do that at level 2. It's also a pay 1 rest self salvage Brainstorm. This can be a good Brainstorm to have around if you don't have more characters you want to be sacking, especially once you've sort of built up a strong board presence. You might not want to sack like your 1/175s. So this can be just a plussing Brainstorm at that point as well. The main card you're probably going to be using this for to search is the Requiem to Heaven Aki, since we do need that in hand at level 2 for our Climax combo. We have 2 copies of the Devil Hunter Kobeni. This is the 001k on play from hand, discard, reveal top, salvage a level X or lower. X is the level of the card you revealed. Pretty typical to have a lot of discard outs in a standby deck. Not only do we have pretty high level curve where we might be clogging our hand with lots of cards that we can't play. This lets us filter those out in favor of playables. But also, since we have standby triggers, we want any standby targets in our waiting room anyway. So this can let us discard any that we draw early on in order to get them into waiting room so we can standby them out as fast as possible. Generally just pretty good overall. And worst case scenario, you're using this to get playables to sack to your Brainstorm, which we can take a look at here in just a second. So we have 4 copies of the Sudden Confession Makima, whereas both other lists, we only played 1 because we weren't running the Climax combo. This time we are actually running the Climax combo for it. So Climax combo, when special request is placed on your Climax area, that is going to be a standby. If you have 2 or more other characters, declare either your deck or your waiting room. Search your declared zone for up to 1 unforeseen incident Denji, reveal it to your opponent, put it into your hand. If you declared deck, shuffle. So Unforeseen Incident Denji is going to be another hand filter card. It's a level 0, so being able to grab that over and over again means we constantly have discard outs and are constantly going to be able to set up our waiting room and have just costless attackers at worst case scenario. It also gives a sack target that you can keep playing every turn to like hand filter and then sack it to your Brainstorm and then add it back off combo, which is just a really cool loop as long as you can keep the Climax in your hand. The second effect, as always, the Brainstorm effect, sack 1 character, so send a character from stage to waiting room, rest this card, Brainstorm 4, for each Climax you reveal, look at top 3, add a card, put the rest in a waiting room. This can help us find Climaxes, this can help us find our events, this also just fills our waiting room with a ton of cards, which is great for standby strategy. Most important thing here is probably finding your Climax over and over again. Being able to slam special request every turn is just great for card advantage in this deck. Unforeseen Incident Denji, the level 0 that we're grabbing with our combo, is a 0015. On play from hand, look at the top card of deck, put it on top or into waiting room. So this can give us information on whether we're going to hit a Brainstorm, whether we're going to trigger clean, or if we just see like a 2/2 on top, we can just mill it to standby it out. This is especially good like turn 1, since you can use it to help get like 1-0s or 1-1s into waiting room on the first turn, so you can get a strong standby play as fast as possible. It also does have synergy with his second effect. On play from hand, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's Devil Hunter or Devil, put it in hand, discard 1. If you have something in hand already that you really need to discard, you can look at top first to make sure that you're going to hit and be able to discard something. Alternatively, you can order them the other way around if you just want the information on what's on top of your deck after you add Ditch. So, pretty good. There's also, you know, you're close to refresh, you play this, you reveal, it's like, oh no, it's a climax, I don't really want to trigger it. You can just go ahead and mill it into waiting room with the first effect at that point as well. So, lots of good options here. Being able to add it back over and over again off our combo just means we have lots of hand fixing all the time. We play 4 copies of the 1-1 Change in Partner Denji. This is the main just standby target we're going to have early game at level 0. It's a 1-1-55 that gains 2,000 if you have 2 or more other characters, and it has character encore. So 1-1-7-5 encore is basically just the stock standard standby target 1-1 power line. We're running 4 to get him out as fast as possible, and that's about it. We're also playing 2 copies of What a Pitiful Home Power. This is a 106k. All of your opponent's characters get Encore 2. A little unfortunate, but hopefully shouldn't really matter a ton. That's still 2 stock your opponent has to play to save their stuff, so not a horrible downside. But we're mainly playing this for the Accelerate effect. So at the beginning of your Climax phase, if this is in the center stage, you can put the top card of your deck into your clock. If you do, look it up to 3 cards on the top of your deck, choose up to 1 Devil Hunter or Devil or Animal character, reveal it, put it into your hand, and put the rest into your waiting room. This is another card that's actually really good to standby out at level 0 if you're able to get one into waiting room early enough, since it's going to let us clock to get card advantage, and also potentially push ourselves into level 1. You know, if we end up at 0-5, we clock draw to 0-6. If we have this on our board from standbying it out the turn before, we can clock to 1-0, get a free card, and then standby out a level 2 instantly. Kind of does the same thing that, you know, Ricky effects typically do in these standby decks, while also just being mill and guaranteed card advantage, probably. And it's a 6k, so it's still like a good body that's better than most of your Rickies are usually going to be. The last level 1 we're playing is a counter. This is Honest Question Himeno 10500. It's a 1000 power backup with, when you use this card's backup, you can discard 2, choose one of your opponent's characters with a higher level than your opponent, and put it at the bottom of their deck. So this is a bottom deck anti-change counter, actually really good for a 1-0 anti-change counter. Normally if these hard remove, we see them as like clock-based ones, which are typically the worst. Most of the other Chainsaw Man decks don't really, either they can't play backups at level 1 or they don't really have the hand they want to just dump on this, but since we care way more about board than we do hand, and our standby combo gets us a lot of hand back anyway, this is pretty easy to use in this deck, and since we're walling up, it's highly likely that any opponent early plays are going to have to like frontal to try to clear our board. This is just a great card to have around for all those reasons. Moving into level 2s, our standby target, just as with level 1 with our 1-1, we're playing 2 2s. We're only playing 3 instead of 4 because we do have some other things we can do with standbys at level 1. So it's a 65, gains 1000 power for each of your other characters. So it's a 10,500 on a full board and has character encore. Just very standard. If you can get these out, you know, trigger a standby, put this in front row, you have a 10-5, maybe a 9-5. Maybe an 11k if you have the Pochita in the back. You're just walling up, putting things out that are hard for your opponent to answer, and it has 2 soul on the next turn. So you can use that to frontal into whatever they still have on board, while you direct attack with whatever utility cards you have laying around. Just good generic standby target. We are playing 1 copy of Heart's Secret Denji. If you wanted to go deeper on this strategy, you could actually up the counts of this and start cutting back on the 2-2. But I'm just playing 1 for now. I don't think it's something you have to really desperately go for. This is the piece of the pseudo-fusion package. So on play, draw 1, discard 1. Already pretty decent in a standby deck. It can help us get like 3 2s into waiting room post-refresh if they were already in hand, if we're playing this from hand. Otherwise, our goal is to standby this out at level 1 if we get it into waiting room early. in order to use the act ability while we're still at level 1. So you can choose the Chainsaw Man level 3. You can sack the 2-1, choose the Chainsaw Man level 3 from your waiting room, put it in the stage position that the Pochito is on, and put the Pochito under it as a marker. So this potentially lets us get out the 3-2 Chainsaw Man at level 1, instead of waiting until level 2, or even hard playing it at level 3, which in combination with the rest of the sort of like power board stuff we've got going on can be super powerful. The Chainsaw Man also cantrips, so it's going to get us cards back in hand. It's going to help us find standbys. You can just set up really powerful board states early sometimes by high rolling into this. And worst case scenario, if you do it at level 2, you still also have a ton of power pump at level 2 that can make this level 3 really good. So, great card to just have around in this list. It fits in a little more naturally here than it does in the choice deck. The other one-of character we play at level 2 is New Objective Denji. This is the same that we play in all the lists. It's the Fumio, just on play, pay 1, ditch 1. Your opponent chooses a climax and shuffles everything else back into their deck, so it's good for decompression. This deck doesn't really have like explosive bursty finishers. We're kind of just trying to grind out our opponent and chip away at them. So being able to decompress a deck with a lot of climaxes can help us, stick our regular attacks through. We can also sack him to bounce one of our opponent's characters back to hand. This is good if we just need like to dodge counters, to get something through to hold up our own counters potentially. Or, bounce and assist so that we can just kill our opponent's front row with our high power characters. Good all-around card, worth having the one-of. You're usually not going to stand by this out. This is one of the cards that you'll want to get into your hand to hard play. Our one counter that we play at level 2 is Battle with a Devil Chainsaw Man. This is the Memory Cake backup. So it's a 2-1, 3,000 power backup. That when you use it, you choose your character in battle and give it the on reverse, put your opponent's character into memory effect. This is just as good with all of our 2-2s and 3-2s, really good at protecting them. Can be used as just hard removal for any of our opponent's stuff that might have encore or end of attack effects. It's good against the Avatar The Last Airbender matchups. You can send their Sokkas to memory, stuff like that. Good card all around. It's just generically the best card for protecting our characters. If you wanted, you could play the Makima Box Topper that can add itself back. It's less power, doesn't give you the memory cake, but a little more recursion to protect multiple lanes. Or you could play the Aki Free Fresh counter, but I don't know that you're going to have the stock for that consistently. Moving into our level 3s, the first one we have here is 2 copies of Sound of a Loser Denji. This is our level 3 climax combo. So first effect on him is continuous. This damage, the damage this card deals is resolved from the bottom of the deck. We are indeed going to be kicking our opponent in their unmentionables, and that pain's going to be felt on the bottom, not the top. So this is some of the funniest flavor, honestly, that I've seen them put on a card in this game. And this combined with the Aki can just lead to really funny stuff. Normally, the damage coming off the bottom isn't going to matter. Realistically, like the odds are the same as to where their climaxes are, but it does just like incidentally dodge some stuff like the Spy Family deck where they can rearrange their top 3. Like it just doesn't matter because you're dealing damage off the bottom, so they're not able to like rearrange their cancels or anything. A lot of the effects where your opponent gets to look at their top, put it on top or waiting room, like cool, you milled clean cards off the top, but I'm hitting from the bottom, so it doesn't matter. It just like strangely dodges some of that stuff, so it can make this slightly more powerful than like a regular card. The climax combo on it is beginning of climax phase, or I'm sorry, beginning of attack phase. So after you've played the climax, obviously, if you pay 1 and sack the climax, the standby, you can stand to this card, choose up to 1 Requiem to Heaven Aki Hayakawa in your hand, put it on any position of your stage, and that character and this card, both of them, gain on reverse, put your opponent's character at the bottom of your opponent's deck. So the climax is a standby. Obviously, the goal is play the standby out the Denji to front row, move to attack phase, pay 1, sack the standby, stand the Denji, summon the Aki, and now you have 2 dudes. And all you have to do is play a climax, basically. So like one stock just gets you the 2 dudes out of hand, basically at the same rate as though you had played them from hand, but it's just for 1 stock, and you're doing it at level 2. And they have high power and 2 soul, so... and their bottom deck kicking, which since their damage is coming from the bottom, that's essentially the same as a top deck kick in any other build, which is actually really good for sticking extra damage. You know, you're swinging for 2s here, like, you're very likely to just play these guys out and stick like 5 or 6 damage. His third effect is also really good to have out on board. It's actually an effect that's really good in multiples. We just don't play multiple of this guy because we have so many other cards that want to be on board, and this guy's effect only really activates when you standby him out, so we don't want to just jam a bunch of them. He kind of starts losing usefulness after he's on board. When he's frontal attacked, you can look at the top card of your deck and put it on the top of your deck or into your waiting room. So same defensive effect I mentioned. But it can help us dig for some cancels and just sort of grind out the game a little longer. As I mentioned, this deck doesn't have anything new that opens up to it once it hits level 3. It has access to all of its effects at level 2. So grinding out the game starting from 2-0 is just super great for it. Looking at the Aki that we are actually summoning off the effect, it's also a 3/2/10/5, 2 soul. It also resolves its damage from the bottom of the deck. And continuous, all of your other Devil Hunter or Devil characters get plus 1500 power. Unfortunately, he does not buff himself, but he does make our Denji a 12k. He can make any of our 2/2s that are still sticking around pretty big. Anything else we early play out pretty big. And ideally, if we can get 2 Aki on board, they can both be 12ks as well. We can just kind of wall up forever. He also has the effect that during your turn, when his battle opponent becomes reversed, you can pay 1, discard 1 to deal 1 damage to your opponent. So this also comes from the bottom. Doesn't really matter a ton, but it's just a good effect to, you know, spend any extra resources on getting some more chip damage out. The next level 3 we have is the Devil Hunting Devil's Chainsaw Man from the Trial deck. So this is 3/2/10k. On play from hand or by the act effect of Heart's Secret Denji, we get to look at top 3 cards of deck, choose 1, put it into hand, put the rest into waiting room. This is great for finding extra standbys, finding counters, finding our events, or climaxes, just anything, really anything. I think generally the events are the thing you want to be digging for here, just since this guy and our brainstorm are the only things that can find it. It probably seems like deja vu if you watched the last video, because I pointed that out there as well. And then he also has auto. When this card's battle opponent becomes reversed, we can pay 1, ditch 1, put the bottom 4 cards of the opponent's deck into waiting room, deal X to the opponent. X is equal to the number of climaxes among those cards. So the one thing that you do have to be careful of here is if you're bottom deck kicking your opponent's characters with the Aki and Denji that we just looked at, you don't want to bottom deck kick them and then use this effect. So just make sure you sequence that in a way where you're not making your Icy Tail worse. But ideally, you're using those at different times. This guy's either coming out before or after you do the standby combo. Best case scenario, you're standbying out Heart's Secret at level 1, getting this Chainsaw Man out at level 1, and then he lives on board, and you follow up with the other 2 at level 2, and just sort of progress from there. Even if you have to hard play the Denji at level 2, the Devil Hunting Devil's Chainsaw Man can also be a way to try to dig for like either the Aki 3/2 if you don't already have it, or the standby to do that combo, or just try to mill the Denji 3/2 into waiting room if you don't have it already. And the 2/1 Denji as well. Like if you have the 3/2 Denji in hand, you can use the 2/1 to pitch it so that you can standby it out. Lots of like cool combinations of effects here, since you get so much manipulation of different zones off of this. The other early play that we're playing is the Public Safety Devil Extermination Special Division 4 Power. This is a 3/2/85. It is yellow, so this is really the biggest card that we want to make sure we have yellow to be able to play, since we do want its on play effect. It's a full board early play, which means you're not going to be doing this the first turn that you get to level 2 when you're playing out your Denji and Aki standby combo, since for that, obviously, you want a mostly empty board. But you can use this to follow up, since they are most likely going to live in at least some lanes. You can just use this power to fill out any extra lanes that still need a character in them. It also has pretty decent synergy with our Brainstorm, since even if we have a full board that lives, we can use our Brainstorm to sack something and get some value off that, and then just play this power to the new empty slot. Continuous during your turn, this gets plus 2,500, or if you have another character, this gets plus 2,500 power, which makes it 11,000, and it gains when this reverses a level 2 or higher battle opponent. You can pay 1 to choose a character in a waiting room and return it to hand. So that's good. If you have like 2 powers, you can actually kind of like just loop them back and forth and then sack them to brainstorm and play the other one and keep healing. It can also grab you a backup. It can grab you the Fumio if you want to set up for a like finisher turn. It can grab you anti-change counter, just really anything that you need. It's pretty good at getting here. The last effect is the on-play effect. You get to heal. So that's really the reason that we're playing this card, is we don't have very many healers. So getting these out just to extend the game a little bit more can help us a lot. The last character we have is 1 copy of Request from a Superior Makima. Some lists play 2 of this, some lists play 1. It's a 2k assist, typical for standby decks. Generally, you're not going to be standbying this out when you play the standby, since you're getting the Denji out instead, which is why I only play 1, and the Aki already is global 1500 once it's in front row. But this can help make your Akis themselves a little bigger, since they don't pump themselves. Again, 2k assist in front. On play from hand, you can discard 1 to put the top card of your clock into stock. So if you do end up having to hard play this at level 3, it is another healer. And it has Act, Brainstorm, pay 1, rest 2 of your characters. To flip over 4, put them in waiting room. For each climax, we get to search deck for a character. This can be a decent replacement on board for the Makima 0/0 Brainstorm once we get here. Since at this point, the board should be pretty big, pretty beefy, pretty heavy. Should be living most turns. And you might not have anything you want to replace those with, so it might not be worth it to sack something to the level 0 Makima. Instead, you can just use this 3/2 that's already on board as an assist to keep getting Brainstorm value whenever you need to mill your deck. The event we're playing, First Indirect Kiss. Same as before, we don't have ways to search this specifically, but we are now playing 4 copies of the Check 3 Brainstorm, which can find it. And we still have the Chainsaw Man 3/2 that checks 3 to add 1. That can add it as well. So it shouldn't be terribly hard to get this in hand. This is, again, a really important part of just sort of extending out the game, drawing it out, making it a grindy game, since we don't have good ways to just burst kill our opponent. It's 2/2 Sense to Memory. Doesn't do anything else immediately, but on any turn at the beginning of your opponent's attack phase, if this is in your memory face up, you can turn it face down to give one of your opponent's characters -3 soul. Really good defensive option that beats like bounce decks. You don't have to have any counter step, nothing like that. You can just, as long as you can choose your opponent's character, you can -3 soul it. You can use it at level 2 if you're in a bad deck state. You can use it at level 3 to prevent your opponent from finishing you. You can kind of just time it whenever you want once you get it into memory. So really good options, really powerful effect. And our climaxes, obviously, we play 4 copies of Special Request, which is the standby for our level 0 combo. And we play 4 copies of Best Contest Ever. Gotta love that art. Which is the climax for our level 3 Denji combo. Losers sure love to make noise. Taking a look back at the entire deck as a whole. As I said, it's a pretty standard standby deck. We're just playing 1/1s, playing 2/2s. We got some guys we can cheat out early. We got a 3/2 that can cheat more dudes out early, and we're just trying to punch our opponent and kind of play a little bit of a grindy board-based game. So this deck is probably really fun to play into other like tier 2 decks. It might get a little rough when your opponent does have just absurd finishers, like they're playing Aki or they're playing Gura or something. But I think at like a locals level, this deck is probably super fun to play. At a regionals level, I don't think this deck is bad, but I definitely can't say it's like top tier, right? But it is still a pretty cool deck. Pros of the deck, obviously, you have a super strong level 0 climax combo. I didn't really go into much detail on like just how powerful it is, but you're getting just free cards. If you have 2 of them in the back, you're getting 2 free cards just for playing your standby, and your standby is also replacing itself. So like the card advantage is just out the wazoo on it. And it has a super good brainstorm effect. We already saw the Standby 7 Deadly Sins decks play this effect in English, which Japan never got, with the Elaine Brainstorm. And that one salvaged back a 2/2 to your hand, which is like exactly not what you want in your hand. This one gets you a utility card, so this is just infinitely better. We have consistent discard outlets all the time. We have the Kobenis, we have the Denjis, and then our level 0 combo is constantly adding those Denjis back to hand that let us discard out. So we should never really get stuck with just too many climaxes in hand or too many unplayable cards. And we have pretty high power lines and strong defensive tools at level 2. between our 2k assist, our global 1500s, our counters, our look at top to put it in waiting room when their opponent attacks us, our -3 soul counter, just lots of options all around to try to turn it into a grindy game if possible. Some of the cons of the deck, however, we do have a comparatively lackluster level 1 plan. If you're looking at other standby decks right now, like Hololive especially, we're not hitting the offensive lines that they're hitting. A lot of times we're probably not even hitting the defensive lines that they're hitting. And unfortunately, even if you run up against like the Aki Himeno deck, if they're playing the Kishibe 1-0, those guys might be 8k or 10k, and that's still bigger than our 1-1s, so that's a bit unfortunate. But once we get into level 2 and beyond, I think is where this deck really starts shining. The other con is that we do have low kill potential. We don't have, as I said, any like bursty, powerful finishers, so we are going to have to grind the game out, which does open us up to, unfortunately, dying to those bursty finishers on our opponent's side. But unfortunately, that's just something you have to live with playing the game right now. Hopefully, we see some restriction lists or something come into effect to hit those powerful decks and maybe draw games out a little longer instead of just end them immediately. Closer look at the entire list again. As usual, you can check out the code in the bottom right to see the deck log page, JEGR. And yeah, as I said, pretty standard. There's a little bit of wiggle room for just kind of like whatever you want to fit in. If you want to fit second climax swap, if you want to cut down the 1-0s and just fit some other utility cards, fit some extra counters, stuff like that. But I think this shell as a whole is pretty good representation of where you'll end up. As always, thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what decks you want to see in the future. Let me know how this deck works for you. We should have some more definitely Shadowverse stuff coming soon. Hopefully some Weiss stuff over the next couple weeks while we get ready for the Lycoris Recoil release in about 3 weeks, I believe. A little under a month. Maybe a little over a month, or a little over 3 weeks. Depending on when this gets uploaded. But yeah, as usual, let me know. Thanks for watching. We got some videos on the screen for you to watch until that new stuff comes out, and we'll see you then.